The replacement control has arrived for this Predicta Holiday, so I'm back to working on it. Here it is. I guess it was salvaged from another set. It's combination power, volume, and contrast control. I already checked out the various sections with an ohm meter, and it seems to be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and install it. Also got the mounting hardware to go with it. If you recall, I temporarily installed control from a tandem set, and I was a little concerned about the wires because the originals had been cut a bit short, but I think I'll be okay. This volume cable was my biggest concern, but there's quite a bit of slack on it, so no problem there. And contrast, this red wire is a little tight, so maybe I'll install a replacement on that. It seems to go around, through, and somewhere's over around this end. I'll trace it out and maybe replace that wire. Now the other thing I wanted to take a look at was vertical hold. It works, it's just a little touchy. In other words, typically when you turn a set on, there'll be a little bit of rolling. Tweak the hold control on the side here a little bit, and it'll lock, and it'll stay pretty well locked. I fired up my holiday set, and I found out a couple things. One, this set works better than mine, so I got more work to do on my set. I never got around to aligning it, so I'm hoping that will take care of some issues. But the hold was a little bit better, but still not fantastic. So, a few possibilities. One, this set just is touchy. Another, the hold control may be a bit worn out. I might have made a mistake, though I've double checked my wiring, so I don't think so. Or could be an issue with one of the rebuilt networks. I'm going to check on that by taking a closer look at the vertical sync pulse. I already checked the voltages and the waveforms, and it seemed to be okay, but then I was reading up online that the only way to accurately check for the vertical sync pulse is to disable the vertical multivibrator by grounding in the control grid on this tube. So I'll talk more about that in a bit. First thing I want to do though is install this control and make sure that it actually works. Oh, also got the high voltage cover. I'm making good progress on wiring in the control. The two AC lines and the volume control. I might have it backwards. It's a little hard to trace out these small wires here. If I do, I'll just switch it around. As for that red wire that I was thinking might be too short, well, I got lucky. It goes around through here and comes up to the top, and there's a curly Q here. So all I got to do is unkink that a bit and feed some through the bottom, pull it over, and now I've got plenty of length. Now I went back and double checked the measurements on this pot. This front section here, which is the contrast, measures about 2 meg. But the schematic calls for 1 meg. I can find it on here. There we go. Now I've seen in some of these Predicta sets where they throw a resistor in parallel across these outer two. I think it's 1 meg. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. In other words, put the 2 meg in parallel. Actually, no, take that back. It wasn't a 1 meg. I think it was a 2.2 meg or 1.8 meg. So with that in parallel with this control, we'll knock it down to about the 1 meg that's called for in the schematic. So I don't know if they had trouble sourcing the correct part or what the deal is with that. But I'm going to go ahead and install it and see what effect that has on the contrast. After I wired the control in, I double checked the resistance on the vertical hold pot and the sweep action on the center wiper, and it seems to be just fine. So look into that more in a moment, but first I want to make sure this set still actually works and see how this new control works out. So power supplies on, Variac I should say, and now here's the switch. Alright, so we've got a winner so far. Yeah, it seems they're lighting up.
Do you have parental consent yet?
Negative, Rampart. We still haven't identified the patient yet. Police officer's working on it for us, though.
Alright, so obviously I didn't destroy anything. So let's see, did I get the volume right? Yes, I did. Excellent. And it doesn't jump up like it was before, so this volume pod has a smooth action. The temporary one I was using, the volume just kind of jumped up right away.
Like our 2 amps.
Alright, cool. And how about that contrast action? Yeah, contrast control's working just fine too. So minimal contrast, max contrast. Cool. And you see, so when I turn this set on, vertical rolling, little tweak, it's rock solid. So I'm still going to investigate it further, but I don't think it's that big of an issue. I just fine-tune so the volume cut out. Now my Holiday chassis doesn't look anywhere near this good, so and the volume and video are off a little bit, so I definitely want to do an alignment. This set I'm inclined not to though, because that looks pretty darn good as is. So I'm going to turn this off, let the set cool down, and then turn it back on and see if the vertical hold is locked. Okay, the set's cooled down. Turn it on again. Power switch is still working. It's a good sign. These Predicta power switches are notorious for going bad, but this one seems to be holding up so far. So, there we go. It's locked in. But I am curious, so I'll show you what I want to check on the schematic. Okay, here is the schematic. My printers are running low on ink, so it's a little faint on the right hand side, but I think we can make do. So this in here is the vertical multivibrator or vertical oscillator. The vertical hold adjusts the free running frequency, so if there's no incoming signal, this will oscillate on its own. That's so when you're not tuned into a channel, you still get vertical deflection, you still get a full raster. Well, the vertical hold adjusts that free running frequency, so it should be adjusted to about 60 Hertz. Now, the incoming signal gets picked off after the video amp goes through this noise inverter, sync separator, and this integrating network, which filters and picks off and amplifies just the vertical sync pulse, which is what they show here. And note they say taken with pin 7 or vertical multivibrator shorted to ground. So in other words, you knock out the oscillator so you can just observe the sync pulse when you do have an incoming signal. If you don't ground that signal, this gets swamped out by the oscillator running on its own, and you really can't tell if that's the proper amplitude or not. So I want to short out that pin and check to see that I have 2 volts peak to peak when I have a good incoming signal. So let's see, that's the 10DE7, I believe that's this tube, or no, maybe it's this guy here. So pin 7 shorting out. I think I'm going to use one of those tube socket extender so I can get access to pin 7 more readily. Okay, here's what we've got on pin 6 without the grid being grounded. So you see it's very different from what they indicate, which is a little sharp negative 2 volt peak to peak pulse. Instead I've got this huge big ramp wave here. Now they indicate in the instructions, turn the brightness down, because when I ground this pin, the vertical is going to collapse to a thin line, and that will burn the CRT if I leave it that way. So turn that brightness down. And then we're going to ground this. I'll turn the brightness up a little bit so you can see it's just a thin line now. Alright, so what do we have on the scope? It can't find a signal. That might be my scope being a little confused, because I can actually see blips. There might be a really big DC offset, so I'm going to put this into AC coupling mode and turn this up, because I can see it's 20 volts per division. I can see a little blip, so there's definitely a signal there. Yeah, okay, it's coming in now. Well, 1 volt per division. That sure looks like a 2 volt peak to peak spike to me, so I think this is working just fine. Or perhaps what I should say is that it's working as designed. And maybe it's just not the greatest design, and that's why it's a little touchy. I've done some research online, and I've seen some other guys have had similar issues with a touchy vertical hold. Now there were some production run changes, so I'm going to look through those and see if maybe there were any tweaks to improve that performance. Otherwise, I'm happy with the way this set's working. So, in addition to that research, I have a little minor cleanup still left to do, like clean up this cap floating in space here. Now remember, I don't have the original or the real CRT for this set or the cabinet, so I can't show you this set all assembled. However, I've got my holiday set, which I'm also wrapping up, so I'm going to switch back to working on that cabinet and do a video on that as well. And maybe I'll pop this chassis into that cabinet so you can see what this would look like all back together and working properly.